ugly. It's me, Bussy, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, by popular demand, we'll be dissecting the contract for RuPaul's Drag Race UK Series 3 and comparing it to its US counterpart. We'll be addressing topics like contestant pay, exclusivity periods, NDAs, and more. Oh my. And at the end of today's video, I'll be doing my best to address some of y'all's lingering questions and concerns about contract enforceability and how we should proceed in supporting Drag Race as a franchise. And a quick message from today's video sponsor, the premium global brand for men's grooming and hygiene products, Manscaped. Let's be honest, some of us have spent a little too much time at home alone recently and forgotten about the importance of garden maintenance. But it's officially girl summer. AKA it's getting really hot outside and extra hair down there makes me sweat a lot, and that's not pleasant, and that's TMI. But anyways, Manscaped is here to save the day. They've just launched the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer. And the number one reason I love the lawnmower, it's cordless and waterproof, which means I can whack my weeds in the shower without worrying about the cleanup of a full deforestation. And the lawnmower comes with multiple guard options, which means you can adjust to your preferred trimming length. Take care of yourself and go from bushy queen to Bussy Queen this summer. Click the link in the description of this video to get 20% off and free international shipping when you use code BUSSY at manscaped.com. Your family jewels will thank you. Now, let's get started. As a quick disclaimer, I'll be doing my best to interpret the dense legalese of this contract, but you've been warned. I'm not a lawyer, and this is not legal advice, so please do not construe my opinions as such. The Drag Race UK Series 3 contract is 44 pages in length, 9 pages shorter than the US Season 14 contract. It's comprised of the following sections, which loosely align with sections in the US contract. First, there's the RuPaul's Drag Race UK participant form, the RuPaul's Drag Race production protocols document, the BBC editorial policies and protocol document, an emergency medical release form, an assumption of risk and release of liability form, the actual RuPaul's Drag Race UK application questions, a personal disclosure form, and finally a non-disclosure agreement. And for this video, we'll be mostly focusing on that participant agreement form, which is where all the juicy details about signing your life away forever live. There are basically no differences in the beginning of this contract besides highlighting that they are producing the show for the BBC and not VMN, Viacom Media Networks, like in the US. It also gives some basic definitions which I'll be using in the rest of the video. Producer means World of Wonder. Series means the reality television program, sometimes referred to as just the program. Project means the program, interviews, and additional series materials. And the word option in this contract, although it sounds like it's optional, means an irrevocable requirement to require a contestant to appear in a series or season of Drag Race. One of the most shocking things that we uncovered in my US contract video was that all contestants are required to appear in up to 5 additional seasons of RuPaul's Drag Race, if asked. That same exact language exists in the UK version. I hereby grant producer 5 additional exclusive, irrevocable options to have me appear as a participant, subject to the terms and conditions of this agreement in 5 additional cycles of the series or RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars. And the most important thing in that little paragraph is that it can require them to appear in RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars, just like the US contract does. It tells me World of Wonder is potentially working on a way to incorporate contestants from around the world in the same series, instead of making like a spin-off of All-Stars for every country. In my last video, I pointed out that this language could theoretically lock a contestant into a 20-year cycle of Drag Race, which is like terrifying and scary, but keep in mind, World of Wonder is not going to exercise these additional options unless these queens want to return. Forcing somebody back to compete on Drag Race likely would not make good TV. But put a pin in that idea, because the concept of wanting to return gets a little dicey when we see things like the exclusivity period come into play. Concerning participation in filming the actual series, the UK version of this contract has a section called Working Hours. To the extent the provisions of the Working Time Regulations 1998 apply, I agree that such hours worked may exceed the maximum weekly working time. This section is referring to a law in the UK that guarantees employees a maximum work week of 48 hours, 28 days of paid holiday, and so on. Which, by the way, is amazing. Did y'all know the US is the only advanced economy in the world that doesn't federally mandate paid holidays? The American dream. Anyways, this provision of the contract basically signs away those rights to have fair working conditions. bringing them down to the American standard. But filming reportedly only lasts 4 to 6 weeks, which, don't get me wrong, is a lot of work. They could be spending 12 to 14 hours a day in full drag. Next up, the sections about filming contestants 24/7 and placing recording devices anywhere they want are almost identical. With one small, notable difference, both sections have this line in them: I agree that I shall have no expectation of privacy in such locations. However, the UK agreement adds this line after that, and accordingly, I further agree that by doing so, producers shall not infringe or violate the rights of privacy of me or any other party. Basically, both agreements let you know not to expect privacy, but the UK one at least says that they're not going to violate that privacy, whatever that means. Both require participants to be available for additional taping, including but not limited to pre-records, wraparounds, and additional series materials, which are cram sessions, recap episodes, reunions, best of programs, remix episodes, extended episode content enhancement materials, voiceovers, mini episodes, behind the scenes content, promotional spots, gaming content, audio content, and more. Next, please welcome to the stage exclusivity period. Both the UK and US agreements lock participants into a 12-month exclusivity period. It starts when the agreement is signed and ends 12 months after the initial broadcast of the last episode of the program in which the contestant appears. If I wish to appear on, authorize production of, or participate in any project in any other media, then I shall request the producer's permission in writing in advance, and the producer shall determine in its sole absolute discretion whether to grant its permission in each instance. And while both agreements require contestants to request permission to do pretty much anything else during this period, they do both include exceptions for live performances, provided of course that those live performances do not constitute a tour. From what I can tell, this language is designed to keep queens available for those World of Wonder sanctioned tours, like the UK Series 2 one happening right now, which by the way didn't even include the entire cast at first. They tried to get away with casting like only the top queens, and then the fan base uproared online, and they finally decided to graciously put everyone on this tour. The UK agreement guarantees queens payment of £1,000 per show, while the US agreement guarantees queens $1,000 per show. And while that is a lot of money, and I'm sure the queens are thankful to have it, remember that these queens could be commanding much more on their own. And DragCon attendance is part of the deal for both agreements. UK queens will receive £1,000 per European DragCon and £3,000 for non-European DragCons. Remember, our US queens receive similar numeric amounts, but with the exchange rate considered, the UK queens are actually winning out here. However, as nice as those payments sound, I do want to point out Willem in a recent episode of The Beatdown reacting to my first contract video said that these queens actually have to pay for their booths.
They will also make you pay for your booth and electricity in that booth if you want electricity, Wi-Fi if you want sales. They will make you pay for it all. That money that they pay you, it won't amount to anything.
Both contracts stipulate World of Wonder as the de facto management of our queens, have provisions for requiring access to all digital media produced and used by the queens, and have the same stipulations for sponsor activity and press appearances, all required without additional pay. But we have seen pretty lenient enforcement of this language, at least recently in the UK. Ahura, Bimini Bon Boulash, and Tace, for example, are all signed to modeling agencies. And both Bimini and Lawrence are signed to Bimini Bon book deals. Congrats to both of them and everyone else in that series. Y'all are also amazing. But it begs the question, like, what's going on with our season 13 queens? Is there just a lack of book deals and modeling agencies knocking at their doors? Or are we just seeing a tighter enforcement of that exclusivity period in the US? Regardless, I would speculate World of Wonder is probably giving our queens more free reign in general in light of the whole, worldwide pandemic that stifled so many of their incomes. Especially in the UK with that 7th-month period break, Ellie Diamond experienced homelessness in that period, and Joe Black sold all of his unused runway so that he could pay his rent. And then RuPaul, of course, had the nerve to yell at him for wearing an H&M dress when he returned to the competition. That said, the exclusivity period presents an interesting conundrum for queens that are either invited back to the show right after their original season, like Veronica Green, Cynthia Lee Fontaine, and Eureka, and queens that are immediately invited to All Stars after their initial season. In their positions, I imagine it would be extremely difficult to say no to such an invitation or technically required option, because knowing if you said no, World of Wonder technically has all of this other power over you, and they could potentially make your life hell if they wanted to.
Jan recently tweeted, "Some of you don't understand the entertainment industry and the importance of taking opportunities, and it shows," which sort of exemplifies how when World of Wonder asks you to do something like return to their show, you kind of have to say yes, or you may never see that opportunity again.
Okay, now, this section you guys have all been waiting for. Let's talk about money and copyright. The UK contestants sign over the same ideas, gags, suggestions, themes, plots, stories, characters, characterizations, dialogue, text, designs, graphics, titles, drawings, artwork, merchandise, digital work, songs, music, and more, collectively known as material. And in this section, there's also a fun little paragraph that I left out of my US video that I think will interest you. I acknowledge that producer may depict or portray my likeness and or my life story, either accurately or with such liberties and modifications for the purposes of fictionalization, dramatization, or any other purposes, including without limitation to achieve a humorous or satirical effect. UK Queens also sign away the same merchandising rights, allowing World of Wonder to forever profit off their likeness as it relates to the show. So all of that's the same. Unfortunately, the biggest difference between these two contracts is rights payments. UK Series 3 contestants receive £250 per regular episode they film, which is quite a bit less than their US counterparts, even after taking into account the currency conversion. For additional series materials, however, which as a reminder include things like reunion and behind the scenes stuff, they will get paid £200 per day of work, which is a little bit more than the US's $250 per day of work those queens receive. But their main rights payment that they receive on a per episode basis feels so low, especially when you take into consideration that there is no prize pool for winning the season and there's no episodic prizes for winning challenges either. Well, you know, other than that valuable repeater badge. And this is all compounded by the fact that UK series are shorter than US ones overall. Series 2 was only 10 episodes in length compared to the US's season 13's 16 episode monster season. A queen making it halfway through a US season with one win might walk away with, let's say, $9,000, while a queen with one win making it halfway through a UK series will walk away with about £1,250. And a repeater badge. And by the way, there are no cash prizes on the UK series, not because like the BBC is too cheap to pay them or anything, but because the BBC is a publicly funded network. This means the general population of the UK pays for programming on the BBC. This, however, is also made worse by the fact the BBC does not accept sponsors, which makes sense to keep news outlets impartial, but this clearly puts certain programs, like Drag Race, at a disadvantage to their other country counterparts. The biggest win for our UK contestants, in my opinion, is found in their other projects clause, which states, if from the effective date of this agreement until 12 months after the initial broadcast of the last episode of the program in which I appear, I desire to render services in connection with another television program, motion picture, internet production, I shall give the producer written notice of that intention and I will negotiate with producer. So either way, it does kind of suck to have that in your contract, but the US version has that other projects clause for 24 months versus the UK's 12.
And another big win for our UK queens comes in the NDA section of their contract. For breaking it,
UK queens agree to pay a sum of £500,000, and $750,000 is still a lot. However, Legia Miller, a lawyer that reacted to my US contract video, brought up the point that these numbers are astronomically high compared to what they actually pay these contestants.
If you were on the other side of this NDA trying to defend yourself from having to comply with it, I still think you might be able to make an argument saying that that amount of damages, even though the contract says it's not a penalty, still amounts to a penalty, especially given how little that they are paid, generally speaking. Like, that's the biggest number I've heard in this whole video.
On top of that, there's not a lot of precedent for networks suing their reality TV contestants. One notable example I found involves Luke Parker from a season of Bachelorette, who was ordered to cough up $100,000 for breaking his exclusivity period. And speaking of lawyers and lawsuits, UK contestants are also a little bit better off here as well. The US contract has a mediation arbitration clause in it that the UK one does not. It states, I understand that Exhibit D waives my right to sue producer, VMN, and any other assignee in a court of law. I knowingly and voluntarily waive my right to a jury trial or court trial and freely consent to the terms of Exhibit D. Instead, they agree to use an arbitrator, who's supposed to be like an impartial third party to settle disputes. And finally, we'll take a look at production protocols. While the US and UK World of Wonder production protocols are almost the exact same with some small and significant differences, the UK contract has a specific BBC production protocols document included. Here are some of the most interesting protocols in that document. For the avoidance of doubt, you will not be mic'd or recorded in your hotel room. The US contract, on the other hand, makes no mention of that, so I guess US queens should assume that they're being recorded in there. The portrayal of any individual's life story will be accurate and fair and in accordance with the BBC guidelines, which sounds really nice, but remember, both contracts have the clause that we read earlier that says that they can misrepresent contestants to an even satirical or humorous effect. That's directly at odds with what this BBC document says. So I don't know which one would win out here, or maybe this is like even some little loophole for our UK queens to break their contracts. But y'all didn't hear that from me. Other protocols say, the BBC will not include any product placement or sponsor identifications in the BBC program. I mentioned this earlier as a disadvantage to our UK queens because on one hand, it means that they're not going to get those cash prizes from the likes of Coach. But on the positive hand, I suppose they're not going to be forced to carry Coach bags down the runway. Personally, I'd rather carry that bag down the runway and win that cash prize. But that's just me. The BBC takes very seriously their duty of care to you, and together with World of Wonder will ensure that you get the appropriate support throughout the process and will be providing a point of contact for who you can get in touch with about any concerns relating to emotional harm, injury, interaction with other participants, and any concerns relating to your personal finances. In practical application, I don't know how that would play out, but I suppose it sounds nice to have somebody you can call who would be like a neutral third party if you were experiencing some grievances. In summary, we saw the US and UK contracts were largely the same. It surprised me that they were like equally as restrictive in terms of what these contestants are signing up to participate on the show. However, there was a lot of discussion in my comment section about enforceability of these contracts. Of course, that's the whole reason we have legal systems. Lawyers are hired to interpret contracts and law, and then it's up to the jury or judge to decide which lawyer interpreted those things the best. May the most money win! Another common concern I saw in the comment section of my previous video was, should we continue to support Drag Race now knowing how restrictive these contracts can be? My answer to this is, of course. These queens give up a lot, willingly, to participate on RuPaul's Drag Race, and they deserve our support. Sometimes seeing how the sausage is made can be scary, but I think it's important to be an informed consumer. As of today, the reward of participating on the show highly outweighs the risk of what they're giving up, and the reward for queens that do well in the competition is extremely high. For example, the founder of Voss Events, the company that manages Aquaria, said in a 2019 Forbes interview that Aquaria earned over $1 million in paid sponsorships and talent fee opportunities. But at the same time, I doubt the early outs of season 10 earned half or a quarter as much, and they gave up all the same rights that she did. So yeah, it's a bit of a gamble to go on RuPaul's Drag Race, but there is a net positive, I think, for queens that are willing to make the most of their time on the show. With that said, make sure to support local drag with the same veracity that you support your favorite Drag Race queens. As a reminder, my channel is made possible by my generous patrons and sponsors, and my Patreon subscribers get exclusive member benefits like early access to my videos, exclusive videos, access to the Bussy Queen Discord server, and more. I've also made the UK and US contracts available publicly on my Patreon. Join my Patreon today to support my channel at patreon.com/bussyqueen. I want to say thanks to you for watching this video and give a special shout out to Travis Lundy, David Welch, Detlef Gross, Mary Jo Anderson, Tyler Dunn, Tom Jacko, and John Crandall, who've all just joined my Patreon at the hot tier, and Agent Sometime, Aiden, Alial, Anna Miriam, Anthony, Bradley, Cameron, Jerry Poppins, Christopher, Claire Moosdale, Clark, Deutsche Leather, Evan, Fabio, Fractalize, Freddy, GJ Bearclaw, GoDP, Got the Morbs, Jay, Jenny, Janex, Jonah, Johnny, Kiki and John, Madam Muffy, Maddie Morissette, Nathan, Opal, Queen Sussy Canister, Ron, Shannon, Shazzy, Sky, Tammy Pitt, Tina, Thomas, Timotheus, Timothy, Tony, Unique, Vendetta, and Wheatley, who are all supporting me at my hottest tier, and Angel, Caroline, Cyrus, Felicia, Hope, JB, Joseph, JP in Dallas, Laura, Nurse Luca, Matthew, Mike, Robert Reeves, Scooby Snacks, Sailor, Stephen, Tom, and Triton, who were all supporting me at my Bussy Queen Collector tier. See y'all later. Love ya. Bye.